Good evening and welcome. Tonight we're going to be flipping through this book about Madagascar. We'll look through at all the pictures inside and I'll read to you all the little boxes that'll tell us more about its history and geography and culture. So let's just dive right in. Let's see. Cute little house. And look at this landscape. So gorgeous. We've got the blue sky up here. The rocks all jagged and brown and red. The green rolling hills with all the trees and bushes. And then the river, all blue and lovely. So many colors. Speaking of colors, look at this. These flowers are, I think so. It's very pretty. Here's a rice field. Lots and lots of rice is grown in Madagascar. And this is the capital city of Antananarivo. And this is a beautiful coastal city. It is Tolenaro. This is a result of a cyclone. This looks like someone's house. Looks like that's their front door right here. And here's a beautiful beach on Nosy Bay, the islands. And here's some ylang that grows on the island. And some fishermen fishing out on their big canoe. And let's see, she is making a seesaw, it says. It makes sacking, rope, and matting. Here's our first box about the baobab trees. The baobab is sometimes described as an upside-down tree because it looks as if someone had plucked it from the earth and shoved it back in with its roots in the air. In fact, it may be wrong to classify it as a tree at all because it is a succulent plant that stores water in its trunk. Unlike most trees, it does not die when the bark is stripped off. The bark is used to make fibrous cloth, baskets, strings for musical instruments, and waterproof hats. The lightweight wood is used for fishing floats and canoes. The leaves are eaten like spinach. The seeds provide oil. The empty seed husks are used as utensils, and the pulp makes a refreshing drink. There are 8 species of baobab in the world. 6 are found only in Madagascar, and the others in Africa and Australia. They can live for several thousand years, so many of the baobabs on Madagascar were alive long before man arrived on the island. An impressive avenue of giant baobab stands near Morondava, and tourists are often taken there to view 2 baobabs entwined like lovers. Here's another box about the traveler's palm. This fan-shaped plant is actually not a palm, but a cousin of the banana tree. It has been given this name because it contains a supply of pure water at the bottom of each leaf stalk, a boon to thirsty travelers. The heart has a medicinal use. Eating it gives one a huge appetite, so it is used to treat anorexia. Farmers use it for fattening cattle. The traveler's palm is also said to guide travelers because it aligns itself on an east-west axis. Although this is hardly accurate, it is the symbol of Madagascar, incorporated into the national seal and the logo of Madagascar's national airline, Air Madagascar. And look at this little flower with a tiny frog inside. More boxes, but first here's a chameleon. Very cool. Let's see, it says Trees for Life. The Madagascar program of the WWF published the following quote by Chief Bakari from the village of Ajavimi Havanana in northern Madagascar, as he shared with his people a new appreciation of tree conservation. He says, "Last night our ancestors spoke to me in a vision. They revealed that God gave us 4 important trees for life. He gave us the mango tree for its sweet fruit and plentiful shade. He gave us the kapok tree because we can use the fruit fibers to weave mats to rest and meditate on. He gave us the avocado tree so that we can sell its fruit and make a profit. And finally, God gave us the jackfruit tree as a symbol of friendship. By knocking on the fruit, we can tell if it is ripe by the sound it makes. Therefore, the jackfruit is our friend because it can communicate with us." And next we have a box about the lemurs. Right, I hope that lighting's a little better. It was kind of dark. Anyway. And my chair is so squeaky tonight. I'm sorry about that if that bothers you. But anyway, lemurs. The ancestors of the lemurs on Madagascar may have drifted from the African mainland on logs. Without any large predators on the island, they evolved freely, and today there are varieties ranging from the mouse lemurs to giant bear-like lemurs. Some species became extinct after man arrived on the island. The remaining 60 species and subspecies are constantly threatened by the slash and burn clearing of the forests. Lemurs are not monkeys, although they are the closest living descendants of the common ancestor of the monkeys. Other survivors of this line are the bush babies of Africa. Monkeys are more clever than lemurs, which are more primitive and gentle primates. Lemurs live largely on fruit and insects. Their long noses give them a highly developed sense of smell. About half the 33 species are nocturnal, including the strangest of all, the aye-aye. The aye-aye looks like a large-headed squirrel with bat's ears, a fox's tail, and tiny hands with a bony middle finger that it uses to dig for grubs or pick out the kernels from nuts. Unfortunately, many superstitious Malagasy believe that the aye-aye bring bad luck. They fear that the crooked finger may point out the next person to die, so many aye-aye have been deliberately killed. Aye-aye have also incurred the anger of farmers because they have a sweet tooth and raid coconuts and sugarcane. There is a protected aye-aye reserve on the island of Nosimangabe. Oh, look at this farm. It's so green. That's so pretty. Oh, it says, let me see. These are old Marina tribal ruins. That's awesome. And here we see some fishermen. Another box about the pirates. It says, when the rich hulls of the West Indies pirates began to dwindle, the buccaneers of the sea diverted their attention to the trade routes along the Cape of Good Hope, India, and the East Indies. The east coast of Madagascar was an ideal base, and Nosy-Braha became their home port. The island is a thin strip of land with coconut-fringed beaches surrounded by shallow seas. Captain William Kidd, an English buccaneer, arrived aboard his first ship, the Adventure, in 1695, starting a life of piracy that ended on the gallows in London. Other infamous names include another English pirate, John Avery, American pirate Thomas Tew, and Frenchman Olivier Levasseur, also known as Le Bousse, meaning the buzzard, or possibly the fool. The names on the tombstones in the pirate graveyard in Nosy-Braha have long since worn away, but one skull and crossbones emblem can still be seen. This is King Radama II from Madagascar. Let's see who this is. General Joseph Gallieni, who was sent to abolish the monarchy from France. This is Didier Ratsiraka, who was one of the presidents of Madagascar. Voting box. And the military. Here's a very poor community Sadly, a very common thing in Madagascar. Let's see, French troops were withdrawn in 1973. And police officers. We have another box, but here's a president. Here's a picture of the president, Bismarck Ravalomanana, who was president at the time this book came out. It's kind of an old book. Let's see, the president. The president is elected by the vote of the people for a term of 5 years, while the prime minister is appointed by the president and handles the day-to-day running of the country together with the council of ministers. The president also has the power to dissolve the National Assembly, the lower chamber of the Madagascan Parliament. In July 2007, the intention to dissolve the National Assembly before the end of May 2008 was announced, a move deemed necessary to adapt to the country's new constitutional changes. One such change includes the reduction of parliamentarians from 160 to 127, as the Rei Amandrain, a traditional title previously reserved for the king. The president shall ensure respect for the Constitution and be responsible for national sovereignty and integrity. The person of the president is also the symbol of national unity. See, this book tries to show you how all the Malagasy words are pronounced in Malagasy, which is not at all how they're pronounced here in America, and it's a lot, but we'll do what we can. Look at picking the rice in the fields and making bricks. Ooh, nice balancing. And this looks like San Francisco, but this is in Antananarivo. And these are vanilla pods. So apparently, I think there's a box in here about vanilla. There is. It's such an involved process to make vanilla. Let's read about it. Vanilla. Madagascar, together with Réunion and the Comoros Islands, used to supply 80% of the world's vanilla. Now most of the crop goes to the United States, where it is used by the ice cream industry, and in the making of cola drinks, in which vanilla is an essential ingredient. Today, Madagascar provides half of the world's supply of vanilla, exporting about 1,000 tons a year. In recent years, there's been a boom in vanilla prices. In 2003, 2.2 pounds of vanilla was sold for as much as 2 million Malagasy ariary, the currency of Madagascar, or $124. Unfortunately, this boom was followed by a spate of vanilla-related thefts, murders, and poaching. Where is Law and Order Madagascar Vanilla Unit? I want to know more about that. Anyway, vanilla is grown mostly on the hot, wet East Coast, where vanilla orchids, originally from Mexico, are pollinated by hand. 9 months later, the seed pods will be 6 to 8 inches long. They are picked, blanched in vats of boiling water, then dried in the sun for about 5 months. So much time goes into making vanilla. And this guy is drying more produce out in the sun. Here's a Zebu. It's the cattle that they use in Madagascar. And these people got lots of fish today. And what happens after you slash and burn of a forest? Looks like she's getting ready to plant crops, it says. This guy's climbing a mountain. There we go. Air Madagascar. So what did it say the symbol was on the airplane? The palm leaf or something. But there it is. And these are, oh, this guy is a missionary, it says. Or something. Oh, that's beautiful. This is rice, you can tell. And then look at this. Imagine that being the view from your farm. That is gorgeous. And here we have some canyons, it says. Oh, it says it's caused by erosion from slash and burn forest clearance. That's a little sad. Ooh, a little hole up there. Someone else is very grumpy about it too. Oh, it says this is one of the most endangered species in the world. The plowshare tortoise. A sign about Noshmangabe. Let's read about Madagascar's megafauna. Before man set foot on Madagascar over 2,000 years ago, there lived on the island huge tortoises, giant predatory raptors, whose eggs were said to be big enough to make an omelet to feed 150 people, pygmy hippopotamuses, and enormous lemurs, the largest of which had the body mass of a male gorilla. These endemic animals were the biggest animals on the island, the megafauna. Explorations at cave, marsh, and stream sites have shown that competition with man for food, habitat, and space led to the gradual annihilation of the megafauna. Also found were subfossils of at least 17 extinct species of lemurs. Sharp cuts and chop marks characteristic of skinning and filleting were found on lemur bones, evidence that humans ate them into extinction. Although these titans no longer walk among man, their remains nonetheless provide compelling examples of the staggering and distinctive biodiversity that make up Madagascar. Let's see. Oh, rainforest. It's been destroyed. It's so sad. So many pictures of destruction. But look at this. This guy is holding the egg of an extinct Apiornis, a flightless bird that once lived in Madagascar. He can barely hold it in his hand. That's a big ol' egg. And these guys are fishing, it looks like. Now, I remember this box when I was reading through it the first time. It just kind of lists all the names of the parks and protected areas, and it's all in Malagasy, and I'm going to spare myself the embarrassment of trying to say all those, and I'll just read the top of it. How's that? We'll go halfway. We'll compromise. Areas of biological, archaeological, or cultural significance are placed under protection in Madagascar. There are 6 categories of protected areas, one of which is the state-declared strict nature reserve, where entering or camping is forbidden. As more nature reserves become national parks, however, the distinction between the 6 categories is becoming increasingly blurred. The other 5 categories are the national parks, special reserves, conservation sites, classified forests, and reforestation zones. Look at this face paint. Oh, that's amazing. Oh, that looks so cool. I really, really like that. Oh, this guy's happy. And this is at the Singi de Baraha, this really amazing rock formation. And this is a very beautiful young woman. And this guy standing next to the baobabs. Let's read about harmony. It says, Malagasy societies depends on peaceful coexistence between individuals and the society they live in. They avoid arguments and conflict if they can, and regard shouting as most unseemly. The family is the mainstay of society, and the concept of family is applied in its widest sense to include immediate kin and distant relatives as well as dead ancestors. Several generations may share a house, although every bride-seeking bachelor always hopes to set up a home of his own. Responsibility for the family's welfare is passed down from father to son. Within a village, decisions are made by a committee of elders that usually excludes women. Look at these guys. So, that's a beautiful face, isn't it? Oh, that's a great smile. But what's happening here? They don't look very happy to be photographed, but everyone else looks delightful, don't they? So this is a lamba. It's this big piece of cloth that you can wear in all different kinds of ways. It can be like a skirt, a head wrap, a shawl, a poncho. It can be all kinds of things. This is on the train, it says, going through town. That's the face I make when I'm on BART. Are we there yet? It's hot. And this is in Antananarivo, it says. Oh, another street in San Francisco. But this is the Zoma Market, it says. All the little umbrellas there. These people are selling some eggs, yogurt, and goat meat on the roadside. And they're making soap balls out of Zebu fat from its hump. There's a lovely family. Lots of wonderful smiles here in Madagascar. A box about cattle. Several hundred years ago, African humpback Zebu cattle were introduced to Madagascar. Today, a herd of these cattle represents a walking bank account advertising the owner's wealth and respectability. A person's importance in the local society is measured in cattle. When a man manages to earn more money, he buys more cattle. Putting money in a bank is not a popular idea. Yet the cattle's significance extends beyond wealth. The well-being of the herds of a village stands for the continuing health and prosperity of the whole group of people who own them. Fat humps show that the cattle are in peak condition, but quantity is still considered more important than quality. Since cattle are such an established sign of wealth, it is not surprising that cattle rustlers, or people who steal cattle, are afoot, especially in the savanna plains of the west and the dry south. More than 80 words in the Malagasy language describe the people's beloved cattle and every part of their horns, hump, and hide. Cows come in various colors, and each color means something different. White muzzles, for example, look like restricting nose bags, so the owner of cows with such muzzles is said to be unlikely to find prosperity. A dappled hide denotes uncertainty, whereas a hide all of one color, except black, as pure black means ruin, like black fields devastated by locusts, indicates solidarity. Black and white cattle seem safer. Cattle are occasionally sacrificed to please the ancestors, and are sold or sacrificed if someone is very ill, as an offering to make that person well again. After a funeral, horns will be put on the grave to show how many Zebus were slaughtered for the feast, and thereby how rich and important the deceased had been. These are their rickshaws. They're called poos-poos. And a wedding. Oh, he's holding her shoes. Isn't that kind? That's a good groom. The cafe here. A little outdoor market. Working hard at school. And working hard at Catholic school, apparently. There we go. Another box about wildlife appreciation in schools. In 1987, the government of Madagascar asked the World Wildlife Fund to help develop an environmental curriculum and produce teaching materials for the country's primary schools. 2 years later, a series of educational posters aimed at developing behavior favorable to the conservation of nature was published. The poster series was called Nivrar. I have no idea how to pronounce that. Anyway, it means nature. Its success led to another sponsored publication, Vinci, meaning kingfisher, a bi-monthly ecology magazine for secondary schools. Primary and secondary teachers still use these materials and are integrating environmental studies into the classroom. Schools lead the way in a crusade of tree planting and of broadcasting the dangers caused by cutting down the forests. That's awesome. see. Oh dear, lack of sanitary facilities. Very lovely looking church. Let's see, this is in Ansrab. And these are missionaries, it says. Oh, are these them? Let me see. Yeah, aren't they? Aren't there Mennonites here? I'm not positive. Maybe I'm thinking of another country. Anyway, a church in Tolanaru. And we have the beginning of mankind. This is the Malagasy version of how God put men on the earth. The god Andrianahar looked down from the heavens at a sun-baked empty island. He wondered about the place. Could anyone survive there? Somebody would have to go and find out. Andrianahar called his son Atau Kolonanon, who was playing among the clouds. He explained the task, to go down to the earth and see what it was like. So Atau Kolonanon floated down to the hot, dry land and looked around him. He was pleased to be given this mission and keen to return with a good report. But all around him was rock and sand. There were no plants, trees, or water, and the ground burned his feet. Sadly, he realized that he had to tell his father that nothing would be able to live on the earth. So he tried to launch himself heavenward from the top of a sand dune. But something was very wrong. He could not fly. The sun was drying him up. In desperation, the boy dug a hole deep in the sand and hid himself. Night fell, and when there was no sign of his son, Andrianahar became worried. When sky and earth remained empty the next morning, he sent his servants to earth to search everywhere. They scurried in all directions but could find no trace of Atau Kolonanon. Before long, the heat began to affect them too. The unhappy servants cracked and withered like dry leaves. In pity, the god Andrianahar stretched out his hand, and there came thunder, lightning, and torrential rain. When the water reached the earth, the desert turned green and became a paradise, and the servants rejoiced. They stayed and became mortal men. But Andrianahar's son was never seen again. This well-loved legend helps to explain why the Malagasy consider that the ground itself is sacred, and everything that grows in it is a gift from God. What is this? A sacred hill, and there's street vendors selling food there. A tomb, it says. It has tribal and Christian influences. And eye staring into your soul. Look at these graves with the Zebu horns on them. Rooster agrees that they look really cool. Very interesting graves. Let's read about Fadi. Whether it is based on hope or fear, religion or superstition, the belief in Fadi rules most aspects of daily living. Such beliefs have endless variations. Customs or behaviors forbidden in one place may be allowed in another, only a few miles away. In one village, for example, it may be Fadi to eat pork, while a neighboring village is filled with squealing pigs. Fadi greatly affects the vital rice crop. Rice represents the toil of countless ancestors, and so it is holy. It may be Fadi, therefore, to move stones or building materials near the field, because the noise might disturb the rice. It is also Fadi to sit in the doorway of a house while the rice is beginning to sprout, as it will impede the growth of the rice. Bad weather may also destroy the crop if anyone dares to gather marsh grass for matting at the time of planting. It may be Fadi to sing while eating, or to whistle on a certain stretch of beach, or to walk past a sacred tree. Feathers are Fadi for bedding or pillows because they symbolize flight, and thus might impede a stable and grounded home life. Instead, mattresses are stuffed with chopped straw. Fadi also determines the direction in which one lies down to sleep. Men usually sleep with their heads to the north, which represents power, and their wives and children with their heads to the east, regarded as sacred. No one sleeps with feet to the east in case the person kicks the sunrise. In all things, ancestors must be respected. The prohibitions of Fadi are obeyed by tradition to prevent causing offense to anyone or anything, and suffering bad luck and misfortune as a result. As Fadi differs from place to place, foreigners are generally exempted from observing them, but it is still advisable to be mindful to avoid offending the local people. Another box, but let's look at this first. It's a tomb. Isn't that neat? There's a lot of rituals about death, like we saw with the Zebu horns, but this is the most interesting one, the turning of the bones. Few customs are stranger than the one of Famadahana. It is practiced mainly by the Marina and Betsileo people on the high plateau, and is regarded as a duty that the living owe to the deceased. This involves opening the tomb, removing the old lamba that acted as a shroud, washing and rewrapping the body in a fine new silk shroud, and then replacing it reverently back in the tomb. Since the ancestors are not thought to have departed and their spirits are very much alive, they must be welcomed, talked to, and entertained. What is important is to show that they have not been forgotten, and family members may even hug them or dance with them. Tears and lamentation will not please the deceased. The Famadahana can last for up to a week, which means that the family will have to hire a band, employ an officiating ombias, sacrifice cattle, and pay for food and refreshments. Women who are trying to conceive may take a small piece of the old burial shroud. When put under their mattresses, these pieces of cloth are said to induce fertility. Even devout Christians may take part in the whole ritual. Depending on the family's wealth, the ceremony is held every 3rd, 5th, or 7th year, but only during the dry season between June and September. Churches may frown on Famadahana, but have not attempted to forbid it because the custom is so deeply rooted in the lifestyle of the people. It is a principal source of their loyalty to their hometown or village, signifies their attachment to their tribal group, and demonstrates their respect for older people and the deceased. There are signs, however, that the practice is waning, partly because it is not in keeping with church custom, but mainly because of the cost. Let's see, we've got newspapers for sale. Attention, requin. Watch out for the sharks. We've got, so here's good examples of lambas, so you can wear them all sorts of different ways, and they can be all sorts of colors and patterns too. Let's see. Oh, this is just talking about different forms of Malagasy, mixed in with some French too. We've got more signboards in Malagasy and French. We've got some bananas for sale. What are we doing here? Pressing flowers in a very old-fashioned way, it looks like. And here we are using French-style sewing and embroidery. Gigantic doilies, I guess. Here's a box about legends. Let's see what it says. Legends are featured prominently in Madagascar's oral tradition. One of the many favorite tales is that of the Vurunjas bird, or sickle-billed vanga. The story is set in a time of raiding pirates and slave traders. A mother and her child took refuge in the thick forest. Raiders who were close by heard a baby crying and headed toward the sound, laughing cruelly and anticipating with delight what they would find. When they heard the sound again, but at that moment, The Varunjas hopped onto the branch of a tree and gave the call, which sounded just like the cry of a newborn baby. The pirates cursed the fact that they had been fooled by a bird and sailed away. The mother, however, knew that the bird had saved her child's life. For the first wail from her baby had been real enough. So the Varunjas remains honored, and to this day it is Fadi, or forbidden to kill, of Varunjas. We are playing some instruments. And this is, we'll read about this in the box. Oh no, he's doing a dance, but this is really interesting. Hirigash. This traditional performance entertainment is the Sunday showpiece of Antananarivo and is seen only in the Highlands. The actors usually perform at funerals and family celebrations, although traveling groups also tour villages and perform in community centers. Usually held in an open-air arena, it combines oratory, group opera, and dance. A performance, which occupies most of the day, is a competition between two well-rehearsed groups of men and women on a central stage who take turns. They wear 19th century French court dress, the men in military coats, and the women in evening dress with silk lambas around their shoulders. First comes the kabari, which is a plea made by a skilled speaker to excuse his inadequacy, to praise God, and to welcome the rowdy audience. Then the Hirigash troupe performs a morality play that is sung and gestured, advising people to believe well in life so that they might go on to become good ancestors. Finally, synchronized dancers perform to the music of trumpets, drums, and violins. The teams alternate their performances, appealing to the crowd for their favor. Winners are judged by audience response and the applause generated. This is gorgeous, isn't it? Little wooden people. And we have straw hats of many different colors. Let's read about sacred art. One of the more durable examples of art in Madagascar has a sacred application. Tomb decorations in wood or stone. Mahafali tombs in the southwest are among the most elaborately painted or decorated of any on the island. These may include scenes or details from the life of the deceased, or more stylized geometric designs. The people carve a lul, a memorial posts sometimes 6 to 12 feet high that are set up on a rectangular tomb or on a grave site. The word alul means shadow of death, and it was originally intended as a resting place for the deceased's soul. So the alul and grave area constitute a shrine. In recent years, greater realism and even an element of humor has become evident in tomb decorations. The funerary art of the Sakalava in the West can be complex, with carved Zebu cattle and fanciful birds. Sometimes the art incorporates male and female figures that appear surprisingly sexual to non-Malagasy eyes, but probably represent the notion of rebirth. We've got some beautiful pottery. Those are gorgeous colors. Fantastic. And what's over here? Oh, some lamba fabric. Beautiful bird designs. And we've got, of course, soccer is a very beloved sport in Madagascar, as it is all around the world. This looks like a swinging party. The Olympics. And we have a box about youth organizations. There are 3 scout organizations: the Scouts of Madagascar, the Unionist Scouts of Madagascar, and the Catholic Boy Scout Association of Madagascar. With an overall membership of about 9,473 boys and girls. All 3 focus their main efforts toward community development. taking an active part in rural education and helping with instruction in adult literacy classes. The Scouts also have helped during national disasters, undertaking relief projects, rescuing farmers during floods, and rounding up cattle to move them to higher ground. Some churches sponsor youth clubs, and the church often acts as a social center for the community. We've got their favorite board game in Madagascar, which works a lot like chess or checkers, where you have to capture other people's little pawns. And soccer, of course. Let's read about stimulating leaves. The growing of drug-producing plants on a large scale exists in Madagascar, and there is a plant known as kat, whose leaves are chewed as a stimulant, inducing feelings of mild euphoria and excitement. Believed to have migrated from Ethiopia, this flowering shrub is a controlled or illegal substance in many countries. Playing some music out in the field. That must sound amazing outside. Over here she is winnowing rice. Marching band. Oh wow, look at these people. 2 generations of royal descendants. Wow, amazing. Let's see, music festival. Donia is a traditional music festival held in Noche Bay in the month of May or June. Scores of musicians from parts of Madagascar, Mauritius, Réunion, and Seychelles enliven this 4-day annual event. In November or December, Antananarivo hosts a contemporary music festival. Madagascar, a jazz festival, is usually held in October or November. The Malagasy calendar. In traditional Malagasy culture, you see, here we go. Time and place come together in the home. Even without conventional education, country folk can count the passing of the lunar months by noting the 4 walls and corners of their houses in relation to the known compass points. That supposedly is why there are no round huts in Madagascar as there are in Africa. The year starts with Allah Hamad, meaning New Year in the northeast. The succeeding months each reveal different predictions of Intan or fortune according to the phase of the moon. And here we see some very beautiful smiles and some adorable looking children. So sweet. Very precious. Ooh, lots of vegetables for sale. And this street food made out of trees, which I talked about in yesterday's video. Just kind of confuses me. It's palm marrow. It can be eaten in a salad. I don't understand. Roasting some fishes. Yum yum. We've got fruits for sale. Yum yum. And some recipes for meat and vegetable stew. And fruit compote. And we have a map of Madagascar to end our book with. And where Madagascar is located. So that's it for tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this video relaxing and educational. And I hope that you have a very, very good night. Good night. Good night.